the machine can function without you. So you're not really a cog even. You're less important than that.
Here.
Oh, up in Seattle?
Yeah, it's hot as shit. I'm sweating,
dude. That's like I'm working out in Fontana right now, and it was like in the low 90s today.
Yeah, that's unpleasant to say the least. All right, are you all set to go? I've got everything set up, I think.
Yeah, I'm all set. Let me crank my input gain here a little bit. Testing. Yeah, that's a better looking waveform, I think. Okay, cool. Yeah.
John, you wanted people to see some behind the scenes stuff, and they're getting it in a live stream. You can't help but see exactly how it unfolds, how and unprepared we are, how
the sausage is made, as they say.
Yeah. Anyway, we're here. We're live streaming on Instagram. Hopefully, both of our internet connections will hold up, and this will be smooth. If not, we're both recording on our computers as well, and we'll hopefully release this conversation as sort of a bonus podcast on one or both of our shows later. So if it doesn't work out, we'll have a backup plan. And but yeah, we're here because this was kind of a last minute idea to celebrate 5 years of Redefining Records, which seems kind of crazy. I mean, it has only existed in sort of the modern version of itself for maybe like since the podcast started, I would say. Everything kind of changed. So, but technically the website redefiningrecords.com launched 5 years ago today. So how you doing, John?
I'm doing well, man. It's a momentous occasion. I'm really excited.
It will go down in history. Where do you want to start? Where should we start today? We've got some questions that people have submitted. We've got some questions that John and I have written for each other that we don't know. And hopefully anybody watching, hello people, you're all welcome to comment questions as we go. You wanna get us started, John?
Yeah, sure. So the other thing too that we're doing, if you commented on the post on the Redefining Records page, you were automatically entered to win some merch. Yes. So good on you for all of those who commented there. If you're watching live, though, you can still post your questions for us here in the chat. That doesn't enter them, though, does it?
It will actually.
Oh, it does?
I will be up. Okay, so as long as we pay attention to the chat and you give me a second, because what I've done is I've actually gone old school. I have names in a hat. I have names in the Redefining Records hat.
Oh, there you go.
I've written people's names on pieces of paper, so I can update this in real time. So if you comment a question, I'll write your name down on these little extra pieces of paper that I have, and I'll add you to the hat. So as long as we pay attention, we'll catch those live questions and we'll add you, and you could maybe win a hat like this.
That's right, a hat or a shirt or all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, we say the winner just gets to choose whatever they want from the merch store. I'm also wearing the shirt, so.
Oh, look at that! The Cult covers.
You could be wearing this shirt.
Oh, Ben asks, "What is my shoe size?" Not that kind of question.
It's got to be, it's got to be a good question.
Question for us. Question about the podcast or about music or about anything. Something that we're able to answer. All right, but yeah, let's start with one that was submitted to us. I thought this one was kind of fun, and I didn't write down who said it, but somebody commented and said, list your dream supergroup and then list your nightmare supergroup. Do you have that person written down?
Yes, that was Aaron Brotman. of the Haunts. He is a guitar extraordinaire for the Haunts. Not sure if he's live with us at the moment, but I'm sure he will hear about it later if he wins. But yeah, great question, and I'm prepared for it. Should I answer first then?
Yeah, why don't you go for it?
Okay. So my dream supergroup, I thought about this kind of piece by piece, and I'm going to go with Dan Auerbach on guitar. I'm going to go with Flea on bass. Ellie Roswell on vocals. She's the singer from a band called Wolf Alice, if you don't know. She's really incredible, and I kind of wanted a little female vibe to the band because everyone else is a dude. I want Flume to be doing synths in this band. He's going to be doing synth sounds, and I want Anderson .Paak on the drums.
Oh, wow.
That's my super group. Yeah.
That is quite the super group.
Yes. Yeah, so I picked people from different kind of genres and just smushed them together, and I'd like to see what happens. Hi, Emily. Emily's in the drawing. She submitted
That's
a question.
right. Yeah, hers is coming up. We can do hers next, maybe. But yeah, do you want to go over your nightmare supergroup, or should I do my dream supergroup?
I'll do my nightmare. So my nightmare, I just went with kind of
Go for it.
A couple people who are well hated by everyone. R. Kelly is doing vocals. Marilyn Manson's playing the guitar.
Oof.
Luke Bryan's just on stage. I kind of fucking hate like pop country. So
Me too.
I might. Yeah, maybe some people don't, and I'm sorry if you're into that. I don't mean to offend, but he just that whole thing, just not my style. So, and then Corey Feldman. I don't know if you know Corey Feldman. He's a child actor from the Goonies. I forget which character he played.
Yeah, I was going to say I recognize that name, but not from music.
Yeah, so he, as an adult, has released some very interesting music called, there's an album or two, I believe, called Angelic to the Core. You'll have to search this up, anybody who doesn't already know. It's some of the worst music that exists. And I believe either Consequence of Sound or Pitchfork wrote like a review on his just ridiculously bad album and, gave it like 0 stars. And it's interesting stuff. We actually reviewed it on Redefining Records in like year 1 of the website. So it kind of ties back to that, bringing us full circle. You can look up Angelic to the Core, search that in our website, and you'll find an interesting review of an interesting album that is very bad. And that's all I got. What is your super group, John?
Wow. Well, I don't know if I can top that, but my super group, I put a lot of thought into, and these are all pretty modern contemporary people. I know I'm known for my dad rock vibes, but the dad rock bands already had all their super groups. They already had their day in the sun. So I figured what would be like a cool modern one. So
yeah,
lead guitar would be Mr. Owain Peterson. He just goes by Owain, and he's this Norwegian guy, guitar player, bass, keyboard. He does it all. Really cool, kind of like jazz fusion electronica too. He gets really deep into like electronica stuff, but tremendous guitar player, bass player, and keyboard player. Truly incredible guy. He can do it all. Then I would have, I also picked a key player too, like you had Flume. So I picked this duo here, Domi Keys and JD Beck. So Domi and Beck are a duo. I was introduced to them when they toured in support of Chon. If you guys know Chon on Sumerian Records,
nice.
They're fucking incredible. Domi and JD Beck are a keyboard and bass duo, and you can find them on Instagram or online or whatever. If you guys caught the Adult Swim appearance of Ariana Grande with Thundercat, the girl on keys and the dude on drums was Domi and JD Beck.
Sick.
Yeah, they're unbelievably talented musicians. If you look at their Instagram, they do a cover of Coltrane's Giant Steps, which if you're into jazz, that's kind of notoriously like one of the hardest songs to play, and they play it they take it to even another level. Like, it's unbelievable how good they are. So they would get along with Owain really well, I think. On bass, I would have Mr. Anthony Crawford. So Anthony Crawford played on the last 2 Chon records, so another Chon adjacent guy. So he can totally keep up with the jazz, metal, fusion kind of thing. But in the studio, he has also played with Justin Timberlake, which Justin Timberlake is canceled.
That's fun.
But he's played with Justin Timberlake as well as Alan Holdsworth. So if you're a jazz fusion guy like me, Holdsworth he's godly. So Anthony Crawford, he knows how to dial it back and do really smooth, soulful stuff, as well as incredibly complex, jazzy fusion stuff. And then that's it. That would be the band right there. Guitar, bass, keys, and drums. No vocals, because fuck vocals.
That's good. Yeah, who needs it? Nightmare Group.
Nightmare Group. So Nightmare Group, I decided to challenge myself. Instead of picking musicians who are like really bad, I tried to pick 4 really famous, really well-respected musicians who I think would clash really horribly with each other. So
that's fun. That's good.
On guitar and vocals, Jack White of the White Stripes, the Dead Weather, Rock on Tours. Jack White, you heard of him? I'm so aware, Jack White on guitar and vocals. Also on guitar and vocals, just to step on his toes, is Mr. John Mayer of John Mayer.
Oh, yeah.
And also Dead and Company. So John Mayer and Jack White are incredibly talented guitar players and frontmen in their own right. They both really love the blues, so I think they would get that initial connection with each other. And then their huge egos, I think, would step all over each other's toes. So I think they would get just deep enough into that connection to maybe get a tour together. And then once they were on the road, they would decide they hated each other. So it would be a disaster.
That would be good, yeah.
Bass guitar, Mr. Jaco Pastorius. Incredible bass player.
Not familiar.
He's one of the best who ever did it. He was who did he play with? Like Weather Report. He also did a couple albums with Joni Mitchell.
Oh, okay.
He was famous for popularizing the electric fretless bass. So that whole 80s fretless bass sound that you started hearing in a lot of progressive music and even pop, that was kind of started by Jaco Pastorius. He comes from a really hardworking, heavy, like jazz background. He is like a jazz player through and through. He did rock stuff and fusion stuff, but he's the kind of guy, famously unstable, big drug problem, and a huge ego too. So the kind of guy who would look at Jack White and John Mayer and say, these guys are posers. Like, I'm the real musician in this band, and probably clash with them. And then on drums, I picked Mr. Keith Moon of The Who, not because of any ego issues, but mainly for his tendency to use his crash cymbal like it's a ride cymbal. So he's just going to be hitting that the entire time. And again, stepping on everybody's toes. So I think that is the Nightmare supergroup.
That's a really thoughtful group. I appreciate the way you approach that. We'll keep it moving quickly so we don't drag on forever with this thing. Bree was on the chat right away, so we should get to her question. She says, if you had to pick 3 songs to play on repeat for the rest of your life, what would they be? Why don't you start this one off, John?
Quick answer. I would say Rick's New Haircut by Mac DeMarco. Right now, probably like The Hazard Profile by Soft Machine. That might be my selfie song tomorrow. And then probably Dope Smoker by Sleep, because it's 56 minutes long. So it's like a whole album.
I thought about doing long songs too. I was like, I could pick all songs that are like an hour long. But that's good. I like that. I ended up thinking about it like not my favorite songs necessarily, but like 3 very different sounding songs, so I could keep that kind of variety in my listening. Well, the first one being All My Friends by LCD Soundsystem, a classic favorite of mine. So the first one is just like a song that I love more than anything. Second choice was April 14th by Aphex Twin. It's just a really beautiful, quiet, subtle piano piece that he did that is the soundtrack in many movies, and people would probably recognize the tune if they heard it, if they don't know the name of it. And then lastly, I decided to go with like a classical piece because that would just add some variety to the 3 songs that I have. So Cello Suite number 1 in G major performed by Yo-Yo Ma, by Bach, of course.
Oh, wow. What was Emily's question again?
Yeah, Emily's question, I have it written down. Oh, she wants us to talk about guilty pleasures with music.
Yeah, I'll start that off. I've got a couple, and I'll move through them. My go-to has always been the whole record, "Songs About Jane" by Maroon 5. Although after talking to a number of really, really talented musicians, I don't think that's a guilty pleasure anymore. I think that's just a pleasure. So my real guilty pleasures, I would say "Dancing Queen" by ABBA. I do not like ABBA. I don't like any of their music, but "Dancing Queen" may be the greatest song ever recorded. And then my final one that's bound to piss some people off. I won't talk about it too much because I'm trying to have someone on the pod to review it, but Saint Anger by Metallica, that whole record, fucking awesome record, man. Inexcusable snare tone, absolutely terrible snare tone. But the actual songwriting and stuff, I was really impressed with the direction they took it. And I actually really like that album.
Nice. Those are great choices. I mean, I don't really believe in guilty pleasures. I think we've talked about this too. Just like listen to what you want to listen to. And if you like it, that's cool. But, as like somebody who critiques music, I feel like there is some music that people expect me and you and people like us to not like, mainly like mainstream pop music. I think sometimes people don't think that I would like, but I actually really enjoy. I mean, we've talked about before, like Dua Lipa. I love Lady Gaga, Miley Cyrus at times. I love some of the new Harry Styles album last year. I enjoy me some good pop music. So that's kind of guilty pleasure, I guess. And then I would just say sometimes I like to revisit old middle school music like Green Day and like Rise Against. Those were bands that like made me want to play guitar. So I still will go back to that sometimes.
There's no shame in that, dude. Quick anecdote for you. When I used to work at Enterprise, I hopped into a car to move it, and the customer had left the radio on. And it was just playing this song, and I was kind of like grooving to it. I was like, this song is like kind of sick. So I Shazammed it real quick, and it was Jonas Brothers. So I had a genuinely positive reaction. I forget which song it was, but it kind of had this like dance hall feel to it. It was sick. I was like, all right, cool. Fuck. Well, I was just rocking out to Jonas Brothers. Fuck it, whatever. So there you go.
I believe it. That's good. We'll do Katie's question. Katie, my dear girlfriend of many years, ask a relevant question of what our favorite love songs were, inspired by our love. My top choice is the song that we call our song, which is "I Would Do Anything for You" by Foster the People off the Torches album. So that's my number one. A couple others that I really like. There's so many because there's a gazillion love songs out there. Like half of all songs are love songs, I'd say. But I really like some older ones. "Whole Wide World" by Reckless Eric. It's been covered by a lot of artists like Bahamas and stuff. "God Only Knows" by the Beach Boys.
Oh, of course.
And I really like a song called "Heaven" by the Walkmen. It's like an early 2000s kind of anthem jam that I really love. What are your top love songs, Mr. John? What songs tickle your heartstrings?
I picked 3, kind of from different styles. The first one to me is such a like funny and sappy quintessential love song. It's the song "Night Moves" by Bob Seger. If you've ever listened to that, Bob Seger is kind of the ultimate dad rock.
Yeah.
And "Night Moves" is just a classic song about like your first high school girlfriend. And it's a great song. It actually has a really heartfelt and really touching little breakdown where he's now current day. He's like an old man thinking about his old high school girlfriend. It's kind of, it's actually kind of a sweet song, and I really like it. Next one is actually an instrumental piece, but it never fails to bring a tear to my eye. It's Naima by John Coltrane. Naima was his wife at the time. It's an instrumental piece, and it's off of the 1958 album Giant Steps. Something interesting about Naima is, that whole album he's playing as fast as he possibly can and showcasing the most complicated chord changes known to man, to the point where like his piano player can't even keep up with him. Like you can hear the band can almost not even play the songs. And then they break into this song Naima, and it's very slow, and it's almost modal. Like he's drawing kind of from what like Miles was doing at the time with, So What, kind of Blue album. And it's this modal, just droning single bass note and a very slow piano line. And Coltrane doesn't even take a solo on it. His piano player takes the solo really beautiful. Like if I could choose one piano piece that I could know how to play, it would be the piano solo on Naima by John Coltrane. And it's just such a beautiful song and such a departure from the rest of the album. It's like it's really heartfelt, and you really feel this love and this emotion he has for his wife. So it's a beautiful song. The last one is a little bit different. It's a song called Bon Your Arse Stomp by Led Zeppelin. It's off of their third album, which was panned by critics but loved by fans for being a little folksy. And it's an acoustic song about a man and his dog. And I don't think you realize it's about his dog until the end of the song, but it's a really kind of cute song about like man's best friend. So a little bit different kind of love, but it's a fun one.
That's great. I like the variety. This question was for you specifically from Jacob Espinoza. He wants to know what the worst kind of guitar solo is.
Yeah, great question. And to me, the worst type of guitar solo is one that does not serve the song. And the example I'll give of this, just to keep it short, is go listen to like some Neil Young. Like he has a song Down by the River or Cinnamon Girl. These are famous for being one note guitar solos. So Cinnamon Girl, he literally just picks one note and just plays it. He's playing one note for the whole solo, but it fucking rocks because it totally fits and it serves the song. And like Neil Young, I think is one of the best guitar players who ever lived, but he's not virtuosic. Like if I sat down next to him, I could probably play more notes per minute than he could. He's just one of those guitar players who knows how to say more with one note than I could in 10 notes, So you don't have to be this incredible guitar player to say something really profound. As long as you know how to do that. He knows how to serve the song. Example of a terrible guitar solo by an incredible guitar player and an incredible band on an incredible song is the Steely Dan song Turn That Heartbeat Over Again. It's the final song on their first album. I actually love the song. The solo, I think it might be Jeff Skunk Baxter playing it. I mean, Steely Dan didn't work with bad musicians. He's an incredible guitar player. It was either him or Elliot Randall. I don't think it was a Danny Diaz solo. Anyways, incredible guitar players, but when you hear the song, the solo feels so unnecessary and shoehorned into the song. It doesn't serve the song. They should take it out. The song would be better without the guitar solo. So even though it's an incredible solo, it doesn't serve the song. So that's the worst kind of guitar solo.
That's good.
There you go.
That's good. We actually just got 2 new questions from the chat too, so good timing. First, if you can see Van Iris.
Oh, what up, Van Iris?
He wants to know if you could play with one drummer from any era to have to be in the studio with. What drummer would you want to jam with?
Ooh, that's a tough one, man. One drummer to jam with. I mean, I would say maybe somebody who's really good at improv. I would say like maybe Bonzo or Keith Moon would be a fun one. Any of those guys from that era who were down to do 20-minute long like rock jams or something like that would be fun. I feel like if I pick someone really good like Billy Cobham, I wouldn't be able to keep up. So maybe one of these guys who's just a straightforward rock drummer, but who knows how to jam and just improvise. I'd say maybe something like that. What about you, Schultz? I think I want to hear your answer.
You know, gosh, I'm probably not the biggest appreciator of like kind of the ability to improvise and jam and sort of be creative with the drums, since my my musical taste has always been more of kind of simplistic beat in the background. I love LCD Sound System and that style of music where it's just a steady fucking beat, like a dance electronic house type beat. So I'm really a bad person to ask, but I guess I would go with just John Bonham, and just to watch him be him. I wouldn't even play. I would just watch him play.
Just to meet him, right? Yeah. Just to meet him.
Yeah, exactly. Just to meet him.
Or basically James Murphy's drum machine, right?
Yeah. I mean, James Murphy himself usually does the drums in his recordings. Pat Mahoney does the live stuff for him. So I wouldn't mind meeting either of them, of course. But in the spirit of that question, I felt like going more with like John Bonham would be fun. But
yeah.
Anyway, we got another question from Danny Z. Are we team NSYNC or are we team Backstreet Boys? I'm NSYNC personally.
NSYNC,
okay,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
The thinking men know that the answer is NSYNC. I thought this was a really cool question from Mr. Ricardo Morton of Rabbitfoot fame.
Yes.
He asked, what do we think the next trend in like physical medium is going to be? He brought up the example, like, do you think we're going to see like 8 tracks or like, obviously we've seen vinyl and cassettes make a comeback. So like, what's the next thing? Really interesting question. I'll let you go first, Schultz. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That it was a great question. Probably too good of a question. It's always hard to predict the future in any sense. I mean, one thing we could talk about, of course, is the rise of this whole NFT thing. Obviously, I don't know how much you've looked into it or heard about it, but I guess this NFT thing, essentially, I will describe it as, a piece of digital data that is stored in a blockchain technology that is unique, as one of a kind. So when you buy an NFT, you have the one NFT for that song or whatever. If it was a piece of music, it could be a song. So I think that's really interesting because it creates exclusivity and puts a lot of value on the music, which is cool, like a high monetary value, which I think is missing right now. I think something needs to happen similar to that, where just the value of music needs to be higher. And you do get that with solid physical forms in vinyl and older forms like CDs and even 8-tracks, where you have to buy it, then it's automatically worth way more because it exists. And that's kind of the huge problem right now is nobody's paying very much at all to listen to anything. We're paying a few bucks a month to listen to all music, and so artists aren't getting paid. And that's kind of an issue. So the Patreon model is interesting, but it only really works if you have a big following. You got to have a loyal support system to make it work. If you're just starting, it's hard to make any money with something like that. So I think something kind of like NFTs could get popular if it becomes a little more clear on how to buy them and what they're worth and how to use them. I assume you don't really use NFTs. You just keep them as like a digital memorabilia, but something similar to that I think could get popular because of the value it puts on the music.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've seen a couple bands release NFTs. I know Gorillaz recently caught some flack for doing an NFT. Damon Albarn, he does this album Plastic Beach that's all about pollution, and then he does something blockchain related, which is famously terrible for the environment. So people were kind of giving him shit for that. But I see what you're saying. Because my dystopian prediction for the future of digital music is that we're going to move away even from the album as a concept. I think what we're going to do is move more into the realm of like playlists. I think what we'll see is more and more artists collaborating within the same playlist almost, if that makes sense. So instead of releasing a whole album, sure, I'll release a single and then you'll release a single, but the fans will be able to see them in the exact same place, song after song. Because I feel like most people like to put on a playlist and put it on shuffle, and they like to know that they're going to have music of a certain style all throughout that playlist, and they don't give a shit who it's by. They might find it because they like a certain band, but then they're introduced to all these other bands, which is cool in terms of collaboration. It's a really cool collaborative idea, and it's cool in terms of discovering music. The downside then is it cheapens the music further, even because you're sort of this replaceable piece in a machine. I wouldn't even call it a cog because the machine can function without you. So you're not really a cog even. You're less important than that. So really cool for collaborative standpoint, but really terrible for the artists, I would say. My idea though about a physical medium, because that is digital, that's not physical. My idea for a physical medium also kind of pushes the boundaries of it because it is digital music. But what I predict, I'll stake my claim here, is that we are going to see the return of the like shitty budget MP3 player. Bear with me here. Could you or could you not imagine 100 gecs releasing a SanDisk Sansa with some shitty what's it called, like gas station headphones that has their entire discography on it, including their newest album, right? And maybe you can't hear the album on Bandcamp or Spotify today, but if you buy the shitty little Sansa MP3 player with the shitty gas station headphones, you get to hear it, and you get their whole discography in there. The nice thing about that too is then you can release it in a lossless format. So if you're a freak and you use Tidal, you don't have to worry about this. But, if you listen on Spotify or whatever, it's fine for casual listening. But if you're an audiophile, that format is not very good. So you could release lossless, good, like WAV files, preloaded on a shitty little Sansa type thing. And that tickles the itch for the like the nostalgia, right? Like I didn't grow up with LPs. I didn't even really grow up with cassettes. I had some cassettes, but they were phasing out. I grew up with like CDs mostly, and then little MP3 players, right? So how about the nostalgia of having your little MP3 player and your physical headphones? Like we're in an era now where plugging headphones into a device that is dedicated to music. It's not your phone. You can't look at Facebook on it. It's a device that is dedicated purely to music, and you physically plug headphones into it. And you can carry it. It's a physical item in your hand. And you can, if you buy the Zune, it looks a certain way. And the SanDisk one looks a certain way. The iPod looks like this. And so they're different and they're fun. You can put art on them. That to me is the next physical medium.
I like that take. I do really miss my iPod, my multiple iPods over the years for that reason that you kind of pointed out at the end, that they were dedicated to music. Like, to have this like device that it became like sacred to you because you're like, this is where all my music is. And when it gets just mashed together in the phone, it kind of loses some magic because it's like, oh yeah, I could play music, but I could also be looking at work emails or fucking my homework assignment if you're a student and all that shit. Like you could be doing anything. So it kind of takes away from the experience. And so I really like that. It reminds me of like, also, I remember my sister had this when I was young. She had this like little MP3 type thing, kind of like what you're describing, but it had these little like micro chips that had the songs on them. Like they were, I don't know, is that what you're talking about? Like she had one sort of like that where the chips were literally like half an inch square.
No, that's not what I'm talking about, but I know what you mean. You pop it. It was like a little single.
Yeah, it was a single. You popped it into this little box.
It had like a single. It was a one song. I know what you're talking about. It was like keychain sized.
Yeah, they had keychains on them. You put it on your keychain.
Right. And I know what you're talking about. That would actually be great. Imagine releasing a single in that format.
I think that'd be a good move.
Like, I don't know if our bands could pull that off, but somebody like 100 Gex or something doing that, the fucking Zoomers would go wild for that shit.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Would love that. You heard it here first, folks. I have Venmo and Cash App if you want to buy that idea from me. Everything said on this program is protected by the Redefining Records LLC. So there you go. Oh yeah, Parker's question. So Parker asked, who is the one musician that if they killed somebody, you would still listen to their music? Schultze, who is yours?
Yeah, I mean, James Murphy is my top choice, but I will say I thought it'd be really funny to say Dave Grohl, because he's just like the nicest guy ever. It'd be really funny if he killed somebody.
That would be really funny. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, I like started racking my brain for who it would be, and then I came to the obvious answer. I would not stop listening to any musician that killed somebody. I listen to Michael Jackson, so
there you go.
Realistically, I wouldn't stop listening to them. That truth be told, I wish I could say that I had that kind of morals, but I listen to Led Zeppelin and Michael Jackson and I mean The Who and horrible people off the stage. Horrible.
Yeah.
So Red Hot Chili Peppers. So realistically, I would not stop listening to anybody. So there you go.
Okay. Well, that's I think that was the last question from the viewers. So now is a good time to do the raffle, and then we'll keep going as long as we can with our questions. There are names in this hat, everybody. I wrote them all down on paper. And I added the questions that were asked during the chat, so everything is kosher here. Let's see who's it going to be.
Jacob Espinoza. Yes. All right, I'll have to hit him up. He's a Twitter friend of mine. I don't know if he's in here right now, but I'll let him know he won.
There we go. Yeah, we'll hit him up and we'll have him pick something out.
Yeah. Dude, so dope. I mean, the reason we're doing this thing is not just, because it's fun. It is fun, but the reason we're doing this, of course, is it is the anniversary of Redefining Records. Redefining Records turned 5 today, so we figured it'd be fun to open up the floor to you guys for some questions and stuff. If you guys still want to drop questions in there, we'll answer them. It's just the raffle's over, so whatever. But I wrote up some questions for Schultze about Redefining Records, a little behind the scenes stuff, and it sounds like he has some for me about my podcast. If you guys are tuning in and maybe Schultze and Redefining Records and the Sounds for Thought podcast, I'm John. I do the sister podcast here. It's called Bands, Beers, and Buzzwords, where basically the guests talk about their favorite album and we play a drinking game. I try to get them drunk while they do it. It's super fun. So it's a new addition to the Redefining Records cult. So that's why I'm here. He has a couple questions for me about that. I guess I'll start and ask you a question about Redefining Records. The first question is, how did you start Redefining Records?
Yes, that's a fun story because it, sort of existed as nothing, well, I guess similar to what it is now, but I'd say it's mostly just a podcast network now. But originally, it was actually even before 5 years ago, about freshman year of college for us, which was 2015, 2014, 2015. For me, you're a year older than me. But
I was there fall of 2013.
Yeah, so fall of 2014 was my freshman year. A few of my buddies from high school that were in a band with me in high school called Dead End Friends just had a tradition going where we wanted to keep exploring new music and not give up on finding new stuff. So we did a book club, but for albums. We would listen. Everyone would take turns choosing an album, and the three of us would listen to it throughout the week. And then at the end of the week, we would talk about the album, just over Facebook group chat or something, just typing. And then later, we did that for a while, a year. But then later on, I just got interested in like web design and wanting to like build a website and just learn how to do that. So I was like, what can I make a website out of? And so I just thought about doing it for that. I was like, I'll just make a website. We can post what we write about these albums. So it started off as just like a weekly kind of collaborative album review. And Jake Marino, and Luke Culhane, for anybody listening who knows them, were the two other guys. And we did that for like at least a year or so. We were posting like a weekly review, which you could still find on the website if you go to like rants and reviews and you just scroll back to the beginning. You can kind of find some fun random critiques of albums back there. And then, it just became a vehicle to do whatever I felt like doing throughout the years. I mean, you would be familiar. There was a time where me and Aiden interviewed Savage Henry on your couch in the garage. We made a little video out of it, stuff like that. And we only did that like for like two or three people. We did these like little video interviews. Just for shits and gigs. It was just like a vehicle to do fun music related content projects. And then, about a year and a half ago, I decided I wanted to use it to try making a podcast, and the rest is history. Started Sound for Thought, that's evolved. And that was really probably one of the most fun things I've done. And my questions to you will be related to podcasting, but podcast, the format, as like a listener of other shows and as somebody who creates one, I think the format has just kind of changed my life a little bit. Not to be too dramatic, but it changes the way I listen to music and I consume music, and the way I socialize, and other shows that I watch have had huge impacts on me, not necessarily even music related, but so podcasting is something I just became super passionate about. And then we had talked a few times, and I just love your vibe, and knew you would be a great person to have on. You were a great guest. So I was like, you'd be a great host. So then we, came up with the idea to make your show based off your ideas, and I just kind of helped you with it. But hopefully there's more in store. That's the backstory. I'll stop there for now.
That's rad. Well, I want to do a quick segue into another question I have for you, because you kind of touched on it, but this question is, what is the biggest perk of running Redefining Records? And by that, you touched on some of the more noble and esoteric benefits of running this podcast. And I don't mean that. I mean, something selfish. Like, what is a perk of being Andrew Schultz?
Yeah. Not like Redefining Records is a pretty small website. We don't have we've actually got pretty good web traffic. A lot of people find reviews that we have from search and stuff, but and we've got a decent following here on Instagram. Thank you, people who are watching. So it's kind of a small outlet, but it looks really pretty legit. And, me and other people have put a lot of work into the content and making it good. And all the design's really good. So I think as a media outlet, it looks bigger than it is, which has over the years allowed me to get press passes to events such as music festivals.
There you go.
So that's probably the biggest perk. I went to Desert Days for free. One year I went to Music Tastes Good in Long Beach. There's a festival in Santa Barbara that was called Starry Nights. Aiden and Kevin Cho went to a festival in Canada. And, so a bunch of festivals we got into as press. And we did do press. We did work. So it wasn't like a scam or anything. We did the work. But it kind of felt like a scam. Kind of felt like I was just getting a perk. Even though we deserved it, I think we made content.
That's the exact kind of shit I was asking about right there, which I need to do that now, because I'm part of Redefining Records now.
All it takes is an email, man.
I'm going to have to do that.
You can never underestimate the power of emailing somebody and just asking for something. That's like one of the biggest pieces of advice I'd give anybody who's like trying to make content or do anything on the internet. I'm like, if you got somebody you want to like work with or go to some event and you want to do something, just like find the contact page, find the contact email, and just send a good email and ask them, hey, can I come do press for your festival? I'll make a podcast and I'll write an article. And you get to go to stuff for free.
That's rad, dude. That's actually great advice, and it actually segues into another question if you want to do one more, and it's what lessons have you learned after the 5 years of Redefining Records that you would want to tell your younger self 5 years ago when you were just first starting out? And maybe that's your answer.
Yeah, that's a pretty good answer, honestly. Just asking for things, and it goes the same for like, even for like the podcast. Yeah, I would say just ask for things that you want, because even for like the podcast, like I think about like whether I should try to go get bigger guests, like more well-known established artists, to try to get as guests. And I know you think about this as well. And, some of the people that I've had on the show, like I would not have thought would have wanted to do it. But I just asked. At some point I was just like, oh, I've been listening to this band like all year. Bands like Husbands or Star Parks were kind of some medium, kind of big bands that I had been listening to the last year that I just sent a DM to on Instagram. I was like, do you want to do the show? And they were like, hell yeah. And I was like, oh, sick. Thanks. Like, I didn't think you would want to, or I didn't know, but just ask for things that you want, and a lot of people will say yes. That's my advice for younger self.
That's rad. I like that. Do you want the rest of your questions, or do you want to jump into mine?
Let's jump back to you a little bit. Yeah, let's kind of. I've been talking a while, so I want to hear from you. This is something I kind of alluded to as somebody who makes podcasts, kind of changing the way I think about and consume music. How has it affected your kind of musical life? What effect has doing Bands, Beers, and Buzzwords had on your consumption of music, and maybe even if it's affected the music you're making as Delta Dagger?
I feel like in the past I was always somewhat analytical when I listen to music. I really enjoyed doing like an active listen to whatever I have on. So I don't think it's changed me in that sense. I think I've always kind of been like that. I enjoy that. I love sinking my teeth into a piece of music and seeing what I can find and taking something out of it. So I think my consumption of music is about the same. I think in terms of how it's affected my own music, it's certainly opened me up to different styles. It's certainly made me listen to styles of music that I wouldn't have listened to before. Jordan Barclay, I don't know if he's still in the chat, but he brought a Future record onto the program, which I before then I knew maybe one or two Future songs that I had heard at parties or whatever. An artist I basically did not know or care about. And then there I was listening to an hour and 15-minute long album of his and like analyzing it, not just putting it on in the background, but actually taking notes on it. So that has been really cool is that analytical side of it, and being introduced to some new styles of music that I would not have listened to before, and certainly would not have listened to with the ear that I have. So that's been big. In terms of the music I make, it's kind of brought me back to like I'd say after listening to, say, that Chili Peppers album, which I'm pretty familiar with from beforehand, bringing that back and really listening to it and getting someone else's take on it kind of brought that back into the forefront of my mind. So it's nice, even an album I do know, it's nice to talk about it with somebody else, get their take on it, and hear things I never would have thought of, and it brings it back. It's fresh again for me. Something that was, I thought I knew really well is now fresh for me again, which is really cool. So that's what I've enjoyed about it.
That's cool. Quickly, there's a fan submission question. Van Iris again. If BBB was sponsored by any beer of your choice, which are you choosing?
Dude, it would have to be Corona, because they do good normal beers, and they also do some very good keto friendly drinks too. So they are a standby of mine for the past year or so. So definitely Corona.
Another question. Here's a fun one to kind of bounce off that. Who would be your dream guest for an episode of Bands, Beers, and Buzzwords?
Dream guest. Oh man. Who would I want on here? Getting drunk with them. I don't know. See, I don't know whether to shoot for the stars or somebody like somewhat realistic. I feel like any of the old pretty much any of the old rockers or hair metal guys would be super fun to get drunk with, just because they're such living legends. I feel like the guys from Polyphia would be an absolute hoot to have on here. Who else, man? That's funny. I haven't even like super thought of that. Shit. I'll take what I can get at this point, but I would say, yeah, any of the old rock and roll guys, the hair metal guys, rock and roll guys would be a ton of fun. I think it'd be fun to talk to somebody too, almost like a Larry Carlton or somebody who's done a ton of session work and worked with a ton of other musicians, or like a Steve Lukather or somebody. I'd want to talk to a guitar player who's worked with a ton of different musicians. Eric Johnson did a ton of session work. But it would also be fun to talk to a guy like Dickie Betts, just this, apparently he's kind of a scary old dude, like just this Southern bastard. But, I bet you he can knock him back. And I bet you he has some insane stories, and he's an incredible guitar player and composer. So I would love to talk to somebody like Dickie Betts and just get some of his wisdom too. So
for people who don't know how much work goes into creating things, how long does it take you to finish recording and editing an episode of the show?
Well, recording, I typically shoot for about an hour and a half to 2 hours of raw audio. And then I'll usually edit 10 to 20 minutes out of that, just from pauses, bathroom breaks. Sometimes the guest will trip up on a question and I'll just delete that question. Even though we're getting drunk and ridiculous, I never want them to sound stupid, which is ironic, but it's like I want it to be drunk and fun. But if there's ever a point where they just don't have an answer for me, I'll just cut that out. If I have 2 hours of audio, it'll take me 5 hours to edit that, maybe 5 to 6 hours. It depends how fast I'm working, but it's not that hard. I mean, it's time consuming going through all the audio. You have to re-listen to it. That's time consuming, but the actual editing process, like the number of clicks I'm making, is not that high. Like I said, I'll delete certain segments. But I try to keep it pretty hands off. The most intensive stuff is actually the fun stuff. So anytime I add the octave pitch down voice or effects, or I'll put in, little sound effects or little silly, like in the episode I just did with Luke, on the White Stripes, I did these little audio vignettes that were just kind of fun. So any, like the time consuming shit like that, the heavy post-production stuff, it's not even that heavy, and it's the fun stuff. So it's like, I usually have fun with it. If I can, I'll usually grab a drink and get a little tipsy while I'm editing, just because it's like you're reliving that conversation, and it's like, oh fuck, I kind of want to drink along to this. It's like the perfect kind of, that's the intended effect though, right? So sometimes it's kind of fun to drink along with it, and then you're sitting there a little tipsy and you're like, oh, what if I add a little synth part behind this thing that he just said, and it'll sound all dramatic or whatever. You just come up with these silly ideas, and it's fun. It's I go for kind of the, delirious, like you're driving at 2 a.m. and you have like the weird radio program on, and it's like, did I just hear that? Like, what am I going crazy? Like, what was that like thing? What the hell? And so I go for that vibe because I think it's kind of fun. So it's pretty fun.
I agree. I have fun listening. It genuinely is a show that makes me laugh, and I obviously listen to every episode because I also write the show notes and I want to do a good job on that. And but I would listen even if I wasn't doing the show notes because it just genuinely, it makes me laugh. And you perfectly capture that, like late night, like reminds me of just being at like a sleepover with your friends as a kid in the middle of the night where you just start doing and saying stupid shit. And it's such a good vibe to kind of capture. So anybody who has not listened or tried drinking along is really fun too. We always kind of say it. I don't know how many people actually do it because it's not always convenient to do that, I'm sure, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, I think that's really fun. Like I said, I find myself drinking while editing the thing, and it perfectly matches the vibe because by the end of the episode, we're always way more drunk, obviously, than when we start, and it's this fun kind of progression. You can hear it go along.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions for me? I had some other ones, but you kind of covered them in your talking. So
yeah. What is the hardest part about running Redefining Records?
I'd say it's just time consuming. Kind of like what you said about editing the podcast. It's not hard and it is fun, but it does take time. Especially, doing my own podcast and editing that, and then just trying to come up with ways to kind of grow it and be creative and sort of just like, I'm always trying to think of just like new ways to sort of improve and work in new things. Like John and I talked about privately recently, we started doing a texting group where we send out the links via text to new episodes to anybody who wants to be on that list. So if either of the two people still on the stream or anybody listening to this later on a podcast wants to be,
you mean the 200 people still on the stream?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of zeros after that too that I didn't notice. If you want to be texted links to new episodes, we've got a bunch of people on the list already, and I know we've gotten some feedback that they enjoyed getting the episode sent to them, and that was kind of fun idea, and we started doing the audio clips where we'd post them on Instagram, little clips from the show just to tease you into listening to the whole thing. And I'd like to do more eventually. I love podcasting. I'd love to eventually like expand the network, maybe bring in another show or two. I think we could do that successfully with the right people. And eventually it'd be cool if we could create this support system for sharing music and have it be something sustainable as a business so that, you and I and other creators who create content that supports music can commit to that full time or something in the future. I'd love the opportunity to be able to like focus on it and do work that helps bands get noticed or helps regular listeners explore new music in their lives. So, I'm looking into and actively working on ways to try to get sponsorships or some way to, we're selling merch now, which is not much. And eventually we'll probably do a Patreon if there's enough interest from people in something like that. We could start developing some more kind of exclusive content for that. We have a bunch of ideas for that. Of course, John does too. So there's a lot of ideas floating around, and I have big visions of what it could be, down the road in 10 years. We could have a music festival. We could have our own studio where we help musicians record. We could have a record store. we could have, live performances, do KEXP audio tree type videos, and that's what I've always wanted it to be. And it ties back to the origin story of kind of just using it as something to experiment with music related content. And I'd like to do everything is my psychosis. Is I have the desire to just do a bit of everything, and I'm hoping that slowly I could build this into something that could let me and you and other creators and other musicians and bands make cool stuff and put it out there, and hopefully somehow get paid for it, so that we could commit to it and do it full time. I forgot what the question was. It turned into a rant.
No, that's perfect. In fact, you answered my final question too, which was, what does the future of Redefining Records look like? So I think you answered that perfectly.
Well, that's all I got.
Nice, dude.
That's all I got. Thank you, Van Iris. I appreciate you sticking in with us. And everyone who's
Van Iris, the boy.
At some point in this stream, much appreciated. Everyone who submitted questions and participated in the raffle. Congratulations to Jacob Espinoza. We'll work on getting him his free merch. And, we could easily give out more free merch again, It's not hard to do. So maybe we can find other ways to do that more often. Because it's free advertising for us if you wear our shirts, and that's just a win for us. So can't be upset about giving away free stuff. Do you have... Well, let's end with this. What do you see as the future of Bands, Beers, and Buzzwords? Where would you like that show to go? And you could add on... How does Redefining Records facilitate it and grow alongside it? And what would you see as the future of Redefining Records along with your show growing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy answer is more guests, bigger guests, more albums. I've been experimenting with some different formats lately. I'd love to keep doing that. And, maybe I stumble upon something that I like to do, more kind of one-off podcasts of different formats, or maybe one of these formats I really like and I turn it into another little mini segment to include in there. I want to do more little chopped and screwed sound effects and little audio vignettes. I want to take that further. I love that vibe, and I think it's something unique to my podcast. Bigger, drunker, ballsier, louder, just more of everything. And the way it ties in with Redefining Records. I mean, since day one, I've sort of followed in your footsteps, Schultze, with your podcast, Sounds for Thought. You've kind of blazed the trail for me, and I get to follow along. So that's been hugely helpful. I think you mentioned, like, when we were first looking at the metrics, you said, yeah, your podcast is doing slightly better than mine was at the same point in time, which I think makes perfect sense because you've already been there. Like you blazed that trail. So it's hugely helpful to have you doing that and showing me what works and what doesn't. And, having you to guide me, so I think as Redefining Records grows, Bands, Beers, and Buzzwords will grow. And of course, as I grow, you will grow too. It's just a purely symbiotic relationship here. I don't, I foresee it as, I see it as all part of the same ecosystem, so I think we'll each grow, and the tide will rise all ships, but yeah, I want to experiment with new formats, get new styles of music, new guests, bigger names, of course, but I also don't want to lose the just the fun ones I do with my friends and stuff. I mean, those are some of the best ones. But yeah, I don't know. That to me is the future of my podcast. Bigger, bolder, more silly shit, more of the stuff you love and less of the stuff that you don't.
Well, I think we covered everything we wanted to.
Yeah, I'm happy with it.
Again, thank you to everyone who listened, who tuned in at any point and submitted a question. If you want to support further, just listen to the 2 podcasts, subscribe to the 2 shows if you haven't already, Sound for Thought and Bands, Beers, and Buzzwords on Spotify, Apple Podcast. There's other places apparently that people mention where you can listen to podcasts as well. They don't need to be named, but they exist.
Unless they're going to sponsor us, then we will gladly name you.
Yeah. Yes, what he said. Anyway, John, always a pleasure talking to you, and I am very appreciative to have you involved and be doing this weird thing together. It's a lot of fun. And if nothing else, it just gives us a fun excuse to talk about music for like an hour a week. And that's awesome.
That's right, man. That was the driving idea behind my thing is musicians love getting drunk and ranting about music. And you and I are included in that. So
very much so. Alrighty. Well, that is all I got.
All right. To everybody who tuned in, thank you so much. Check out redefiningrecords.com. Follow us both on Instagram. Follow the podcasts. You know the drill.
This has been a Redefining Records production.